So paella can be, I'd like you to think about it the way you think about wine. Every wine has an appearance, and then it has an aroma, and then it has a taste, and it has a texture. And so those four elements are key to controlling how a paella goes together, and they all sort of work together. So I'm going to try to walk you through it. Here are some examples of paellas, and what do you see in all of these? The first thing is that they're very colorful. They mix greens and reds and blacks and all kinds of different colors. The second thing is that what you're looking at has a primal feel to it. Shellfish in the shell. We're looking at shrimps with the legs on, which improves the flavor, but it's also kind of fun. Some people even like to have the heads on so that they look really primal. Again, we're trying to take us back to that time when we were eating this stuff in the primordial beaches. And the third thing is that everything is kind of finger food. It's kind of bite size. So you wouldn't want to put a whole chicken breast in a paella because you'd have to cut it. And it's really there to just be kind of eaten one piece at a time. So those are the three guiding principles of any paella. Now, all that being said, I really should mention that nothing that I'm going to show you here is a real Spanish paella. If you want a real Spanish paella, the way you do it is you go to Spain, you go to Valencia, and that's how you get one. If you have a Spaniard coming over to your house and you use any of these recipes, for God's sake, tell them it's a casserole. Because otherwise, you're in for a real load of expletives. Okay, so that's the first thing, is the appearance of all of these different textures and colors. Now the aroma. So let's step over here. The primary aroma of real Spanish paella is saffron. And saffron has a really elusive, kind of sexy aroma. Now here's some saffron that I saw on the shelf at Safeway. And as you can see, it's 0.06 ounces, so that's about 1.5 grams, and it's $19. So that means that a pound of saffron goes for about $600. And you'll be using, in one of these paellas, you'd be using about $6 worth, about 0.5 gram. And so it's the most expensive spice in the world. And that's because we're just pulling out these little strands from the flowers that have all the flavor and color in them. It's extremely high intensive hand labor to make saffron. Now, when I went to the Republic of Georgia, I bought this stuff. I bought 2 ounces of saffron for $2. What's the difference? They don't pull out the thread. They just grind up the whole flower, and it has that wonderful aroma, and it's very cheap to make. It's just, you have to use more of it. You know, it's really a staple in the Republic of Georgia in their cooking, and if you go to an open air market, half the stalls will have these strings of saffron flowers, kind of like you see strings of garlic and so forth. All right, so I'm going to use my Georgian saffron in one of the dishes. We're going to make 2 paellas, and for the other one, I'm going to talk about saffron substitutes and ways to get that kind of sexy aroma. So the first thing is saffron, of course, from, you know, saffron colored robes that are kind of orangish yellow. And you can get that with turmeric. Turmeric is also very good for you. It's good for lowering blood pressure and lots of other things. But it doesn't really have that much flavor. So What I recommend is to bring in some Madras curry, which also has turmeric in it, but a lot of other things. Curry means blend, and so it's a blend of about 15 different spices. And what I recommend is that you find out the mixture that you like here. I would start with 50-50, and then if that's too hot for you, then cut it back on your next paella, or however you want to manage that. But that's a start. So, but we still don't have, we have flavor, but we don't have those sexy aromatics. And so there are several things we could do. A little bit of rose water will give, of course, a floral essence. You can also use jasmine essence or jasmine rice. Bay leaf comes kind of close in aromatics to that sexy aroma. And then garlic powder. I'll talk about garlic powder in a second, but the other thing is right at the end, I like to put some cilantro, which has a nice aromatic. The aromatic goes away if you cook it, and so you just sprinkle it on the paella right at the end, and you can impart some of those aromatics. Now, what I was going to say about garlic, of course, garlic makes everything taste good. And we have two kinds here. I've slivered the garlic here so that you can even use whole cloves if you want to. So that's going to add to the appearance of the dish, and we're going to put it right on top of the rice so we can have people see it, and then they can bite into these and get a nice little garlic hit, fresh garlic. I like to use it in conjunction with garlic powder or granulated garlic. I don't like the powder because it clumps too much, but you could granulated garlic, and I use a lot of this. It's really hard to use too much, and that will add some of the aromatic sexiness to the dish. All right, so much for aroma. Now we have taste. I recommend the choice of your broth. Here I'm using an organic chicken bone broth. But I don't like to use it pure. I always like to put in about a quarter of something like this clam juice to add to the seafood kind of flavor there. The other thing you can use is, this is my favorite. It's called Better Than Bullion, and this is the chicken organic base, which is very good, and it really is better than Bullion. But if you can find it, these guys also make a lobster base, and that's just great for a paella. Then we're going to also, to enhance, maybe I should have put this over on the aromatic side, we're going to put a little dash of cognac. Now, I have to tell you, this is God's own cognac. It's not really cognac. It's from South Africa, from an organic farm called Upland Estate. And it's just about the best. In fact, there's a Swedish competition when they said that is the best cognac style brandy outside of cognac. I'm going to waste a little splash of it because it's the only brandy I got, and I'm really sorry, Edmund. But I just want you to know how much I respect you, and everybody should try to get their hands on this stuff. And I'm going to waste a drop. And then finally, I want to talk about spiciness. I think that you should make your dish for the most sensitive palate in the house, for the person that really can't handle a lot of heat. And then get yourself Tabasco, or I have a little homemade hot sauce here that I use, or Crystal, hot sauce, something like that. Dave's Insanity sauce, whatever you like. A lot of people use the sriracha Vietnamese. That's what you'll normally see on the tables in a paella store. This is my secret weapon. This is from Malden, and it's called sea salt flakes. And this is a relatively low salt dish. What I like to do is add all the salt on top of the dish, along with the cilantro, right at the end. So we have these little flakes here, and what you end up with is these little explosions of saltiness, so that you end up with a fairly low sodium dish that has some salty flavor to it, and little flavor hits of salt. Okay, so much for taste. Now let's talk about texture. There are two things to discuss here. Three, I guess. One is your choice of rice. So in the semi-authentic version that I'm going to do, I'm going to use an organic short grain brown rice, and I'm going to fry it in a skillet the way you would for Spanish rice. That's not a traditional paella thing to do. They normally sprinkle it after everything else is done and then simmer, but I'm not going to do that. And the reason I don't think you should either, until you get good at this, is that the texture you come up with the rice is a little unpredictable until you really get the hang of it. Then for the other one, this is something that anyone can find. This is a company called Cal Rose, called this Silver Pearl Medium Grain. And I'm going to use that on the other one. So the choice of rice is important. The other thing I'm trying to illustrate here is how much water you want to use with that rice is going to determine how al dente or super mushy or somewhere in between, and you're going to have to experiment with that. Start with 2 to 1. We're going to be adding some liquid when we put our tomatoes in, but we're also going to be, this is all done open top except for right at the end. So we're boiling off liquid all the time as well. And so you're going to end up with about 2 to 1. So in other words, you should get kind of regular standard rice. If it's a little underdone for your taste, next time use more liquid, and vice versa. The other thing to talk about with texture is the degree of fattiness. Now, I make paella because I love it, but I'm a keto diet guy, and so I really like most of the time not to have any carbohydrates at all. But once in a while, I think it's good to get off the keto, get out of ketosis, and get back in. And let me tell you, paella is a pretty good way to do it. So anyway, I am not concerned with fat in my diet. In fact, I'm trying to get as much fat as I possibly can. Some of you may not feel that way. And so the degree, fat has a lot of flavor in it. The degree of fattiness is a personal choice. And one of the things you can do to manipulate that, I'm gonna fry up some of this honey lavender bacon, just the world's greatest bacon. And that'll give me some grease. And then also I've chosen chicken wings here, or I could have gone with thighs, especially with skins on. And that's gonna give more fat to the dish. If you want less fat, then you should probably go with a bone chicken breast, but you'll have to cut it up into pieces so that people can eat it. Okay, now let's talk about what we're gonna use for a heat source, and then what we're gonna cook this paella in. Traditionally, a paella is done on a wood fire outside with a grill above it, and it's done in a paella pan, which is flat all the way along the bottom and about 2 inches deep, and it has handles on both sides. Here's a picture of a good one that's actually stainless steel and kind of indestructible and easy to clean. So if you got really into paella, you might want to have your own paella pan. But there are lots of other ways to go. For example, we found this just under the stove, and this is a perfect paella pan if you wanted to feed like 25 people, which is not what we're gonna cook paellas for 4 now. So any sort of skillet, certainly a cast iron skillet is great. You do want to have some depth to it, so you could use a saute pan for paella for 1. The important thing is that it's flat on the bottom and distributes heat pretty well. You could even use a cake tin. because you have these are maybe 1.25 inches high. So this would be great for a paella for two. You might choose to do it in the oven, which might be a little bit easy. And then, you know, any sort of saucepan, obviously the higher it is, the more you can make, but you do want it spread out. You never want the paella to be more than 2 inches thick. So this is another good one. I've never tried to make a paella on a non-stick surface, and I'm not really sure how that would work. We do want to brown it at the end, on the bottom, make a crust. And so actually non-stick might be just a thing for getting it out of there after we do that, but I've never tried it. And these are aluminum pans, and so they do distribute heat really well. So those are all okay ways to go. This is what we're going to use today. I'm going to make the semi-traditional. I love this wok, and you know, a lot of people like, especially if you're in a wood fire and it's really hot, you might want to have a nice long handle on your pan. If you look up what Martha Stewart is doing, she's got a paella pan that's got about a 2-foot, 3-foot handle on it. And so I love Chinese cooking with this wok, and it's a stovetop wok, so it's flat on the bottom, and it's also relatively thin. The reason woks exist is that there isn't very much wood up in Manchuria, and so they invented this way to use a relatively small amount of fuel and get that right up to the stir fry or whatever they were doing on the steps. So I'm gonna do my super duper paella in that one, and then we're gonna do the easy peasy in this, which is just a stainless steel non-stick surface with a lot of weight to it. So once we get it hot, it's going to take a little longer to get it hot, but once we get it hot, it's going to stay hot. So a different kind of control there. And then you're also going to need, depending on how much stock you're doing, you're going to need some kind of pot to boil your stock in, but I'm sure you can find one of those. Now, you can find recipes on the internet for a pressure cooker or slow cooker version of this dish. I do not recommend them because you can't get that crunchy crust underneath, which is really the signature of the dish. It's called a sokarat. And you can't get it with a slow cooker. So step one is to prepare the stock. So we want to have a little bit of clam broth in there. So I'm going to drain the liquid from this can of baby clams. And we want to have 2 cups altogether. So that's right about 1/2 cup, and I'm going to fill the rest of it up. What I'm going to do with this one is rather than using stock, I'm going to use this better than bouillon stuff. So I'm actually going to use water, just in case you don't have any chicken stock around. I will tell you that one of the best ways to prepare a chicken is to just take the whole thing and stick it in a slow cooker and cover it with water. And then you'll have wonderful chicken stock, nothing like fresh chicken stock. So we want 2 cups all together. And then we're going to put in our turmeric, and this is turmeric here. I'm going to put in a teaspoon of that, and this is going to color things up. You want to come over here and take a look at what turmeric does. I mean, this stuff is really yellow, so that's going to color the whole dish. And then, but it's like I said, it's kind of bland. So then we've got our curry here, and I'm going to put that in an equal measure another teaspoon. That has more turmeric in it too, so we're going to have plenty of color there. And then I'm going to put in, for each cup, I need a teaspoon of better than bouillon. And again, if this is the chicken, and it's really good, but if you can get the lobster stock, that's really the best. So then we're going to add our aroma enhancers to try and make it more like saffron. I'm going to put, these are kind of little, so I'm going to put 2 bay leaves in here. Those will be removed after they've done their thing. Bring this whole thing to a boil. And the other thing I'm going to put in here is a little bit of rose water. Just a little dollop. And then you, as I say, you really never can have too much garlic. So let's just set that to boil. Now we're going to make the other one, which is with the saffron. And here I'm going to use this bone broth I've got, and again about the same proportion. So I'll take a half a cup of clam juice. Take that up to a cup. This is chicken bone broth. And then another. And now I'm going to put in some of this saffron from the Georgian Republic. You don't have to write down how much I use because you're never going to get any unless you go to Georgia to get it. So, but this is real saffron, and would be the equivalent half a gram of pure saffron. In other words, about $6 of saffron. Where that from Georgia is about 10 cents worth of saffron. And I'm just, here we're bringing that to a boil now. And we're gonna boil it until it extracts all the color. It will boil down just a little bit, so we'll if you want to boil that for 5 minutes. And then I'm going to toss in these frozen peas. I don't want to cook the peas right now. I'm just going to get them in there, and they'll sit and steep so that when the time comes to add them to the dish, they won't be overcooked. Okay, so now I'm going to do that Spanish rice thing I was talking about. You see, I'm heating the wok until it just smokes a little bit. And then I like to use avocado oil because it doesn't smoke very much. You can also use grapeseed oil. And it really doesn't take very much. And then I'm just going to toss that. This is that organic short grain brown rice, and I'm just going to brown it. So I'm going to my wok spatula can keep that moving. And while I'm doing that, see here, you can hear it's crackling and coating with oil and all that. And it's easy with this handle to kind of keep it moving and so forth. So then over here, I'm going to get started on my bacon because I'm not going to do that step with the white rice. And I'm just going to I'm going to create a little grease here that I can saute my chicken in. You can see that once that pan gets hot, it stays hot. Sure does. And we don't want to overcook this bacon. We just want to get a little bit of lard out of it. And man, this honey lavender stuff is so good. And you can see getting a little grease. Getting a little bit brown. Keep this moving over here. And now I've had my my stocks boiling here for the 5 minutes. I'm going to turn the heat off on those. And then I'm going to put about a quarter of a cup of peas into each one. And turn them off and just let them sit. Put some lids on those, and I won't have to think about them. You see the rice is starting to brown here. This is good to go. We're going to take the bacon out and just stick it on a side plate here. And we'll be tossing that in a little later on. We're going to do this with a lot of things, do in sequence. So the first thing is to render the bacon. If you're using ham, you skip this step and just toss it in with the chicken. But now, got a nice hot pan with some grease in it. Of course, the chicken's got grease in it too. So.
Think of bacon in appearance.
Now, I got two different treatments for chicken here. This one is for the good stuff, and it's been rubbed with Hungarian paprika. It's Spanish paprika is good too, and I've got some smoked Spanish paprika that I love. Whoops, that's going in the wrong pan. This is the good stuff. Yeah. Okay, so this is just garlic powder and Lowry's seasoned salt, which does have paprika in it, and everybody's got some. And you know, I always try to conceal the fact that I love Lowry's seasoned salt, but I really do, and I use it in a lot of recipes. And the other product that they've got, I just got to show this to you, is their new garlic salt is fantastic. It's got something in it. I don't know what it is, but it sure is delicious. All right, now this rice is all ready to go, and we're going to hold that back till a little bit later. Now in the wok here, we're going to repeat what we were doing over there with the bacon. Going to need a little bit of oil to get things started, and so we'll use this wonderful bacon. And I got to tell you, the difference in the aroma of these two stocks. I mean, doing the best we can, but there's really nothing like saffron. I've got enough oil in there. I'm gonna hurry things along a little with this chicken. With a little more avocado oil. going to offload this bacon along. I just put it right with the rest of it, and then I'll get my chicken in here. This is the stuff with the imported paprika. Never use American paprika. That stuff that you put on the deviled eggs just for color. It doesn't have any flavor at all. So make it Spanish or Hungarian. All right, now we've got these chicken wings done, and I wasn't entirely certain that they were done uncovered, so I did cover them, and I put a little water to help steam. And part of the reason I did that is that it's Mother's Day, and we wanted to talk to Ruthie's mom, who's a wonderful gal, and so I had to put the whole thing on hold for half an hour. And now those wings are just great. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put the kielbasa in and bacon. And all we want to do is just warm this stuff up. Now I've got exactly 12 pieces here. The idea is that everybody, it's for 4, right? So you get a wing and you get 3. Okay, so I need 3 more right there, and then I'm going to come back partly because of what's on the pan there, and I'm going to add a little more water. The thing to remember is it's fine to do this in order to transmit the heat, but anything you add has to be. Let's see, I'm going to deglaze the pan there a little bit, and then I'm going to cover it up, and that'll. But all this water here has got to be rendered back down, because otherwise your rice is going to have too much liquid and it's going to be mushy. So we'll do the same thing over here. These just came out great, and I'm going to add the rest of the kielbasa in there, and I'm just going to add the bacon at the end. So we need a little bit more water here just to transmit. And we'll just let that simmer for a brief time. Simply the kielbasa is already fully cooked, and we just want to warm it up. Now I'm going to show you how to cut up an onion. This little trick I learned. You start by putting the onion in the fridge, and that's going to keep it from spraying all over, and you can cut up an onion without crying. So I've peeled back all the skin, and you want to leave this knob in place so that the whole onion stays together as you're doing this. So you want that nub there. The next thing you do is hold it like so. You can cut off the tip here. That's not a problem. So I'm going to hold it like so and cut it in exactly in half, longitudinally. And now what we want to do, we want to get this into slices. Now, if I was dicing the onion, I would go from slices. I'm just going to make a series of cuts here, and that'll work for me. If I wanted to then dice it, the whole thing is still together because of this, and we could cut like this and make dice. But in this dish, I want to show the red skin as part of the colorful look that we're putting together here of all the different elements of the dish. So I just go in here just close to the nub, and I just make slices coming down forward, rotating the knife slightly, and always from the nub there. By the way, the knife I'm using here is a Japanese cleaver. I just love it. I got it from Spyderco, and it's one of my favorite knives to cook with. So now, like I said, if I wanted to dice this stuff, I could chop right here and then no more tears. But I'm just going to cut it all right here, and now I've got perfect slices and no tears. I'll arrange them on this plate, and we're going to add these to the dish later on. That's all there's to it. Okay, and so here we are. See, that's just perfect. Got those sausages all warmed up, and I'm pretty happy with the way the chicken looks. So now I'm just gonna unload all of this stuff and take the chicken wings. We still want to keep all of that nice chicken fat and bacon fat and everything in the down there in the pan, and we're going to use that to saute some onions and garlic. So there we go, and we're just all these guys. And then we got to remember that this is our plate for our easy paella, and this is the one with the substitutes for the saffron and like that. So I got my bacon in there as well, and now I'm going to do the same for my wok here. Got the just perfect looking chicken there, and it's not quite as brown as the other. And we boiled down the water I was using to steam it into. So this is the Hungarian paprika. And then we'll just get all this over there on that plate. We better keep track of which is which. It's not too hard to do because it's so, the paprika is so aromatic. And then let's get going on, we're just going to lightly saute these onions and this garlic. So bring the heat up a little bit. And get that going. And I think I got enough oil in there to do the job, and I also got all this good stuff to render here. So get that moving a little bit, and then let's see how this goes. So the first thing, put a little bit of garlic in there, about half of this, like so. The other half in here, and then we have those red onions that we want. We want them to have a little bit of a garnish, so we'll brown them slightly. But not too much. And then we're going to come in with our shrimp. I feel like maybe I'd like to see just a little bit more oil in there. Olive oil. I'm going to be careful with this stuff because although it adds a lot of nice flavor, it can also it can burn and smoke much more easily than the cheap stuff. There we go. That's just what we're looking for. Got it as well. Just one more. See, pick up all of that nice. See how great this flat bottom wok with a handle is to work on stuff like this.
It smells amazing.
Do you think so?
Yes.
Yeah. Nothing like garlic.
Oh, it's the paprika I can smell now too.
Yeah. It's a real treat. Okay, so now we put in our prawns. Everybody gets a prawn. And we don't want to cook them all the way because we're going to be steaming them at the end when we finish the dish. So just want to kind of half cook them. Just doesn't take very long. See, now it's pink on that side. That's all we want. So we get that on both sides. And then over here, same deal. Half cook those prawns. And there you go, that's perfect. So this one's ready to go. And we'll pop that one over here on this plate. And then I guess I'll put it next to its accompaniment. Keep those straight. And that'll be ready to toss into the dish at the end. And here we go. Just plate that and set aside for now. Now, there's three things you can do with a lemon, and I'll illustrate them all here. I actually tend to kind of do all three. And so one of them is that we want a couple of slices of lemon right on top of the dish, and they will cook with the dish. So you'll have a cooked slice of lemon. It has a wonderful flavor. And you take those right out of the center of your lemon, like so. Take a couple of nice thin slices there. Try it. All right, so then you have a choice whether you want to let your guests put their own lemon on the dish. And so in order to do that, you just take one of these and cut it in half, and now you have a couple of squeezers for people to use. You can even cut them into quarters if you want to, and we'll store those in here fresh along with the sliced stuff. And the other thing that you can do, of course, is to just juice the lemon yourself. And so that's very simple, and I'm going to end up with some nice lemon juice that I'll sprinkle over the top of the whole dish. And so we'll just pour that into a little container and set it aside. Now that's all ready to garnish the dish right at the end, along with the coriander, the cilantro, leaves, and the salt. All right, we're in the home stretch now. It's time to actually build the actual paella. We're going to start with actual chopped fresh tomato and onion, but in this case, I'm just going to use some salsa, get it in there, and you want to just saute it. It's a little hot until it gets fragrant. And again, you're trying to move all of that. Now you got some liquid in there. You're trying to move that stuff. So that's all you need to do. And then here we got the other one, same deal. And just a little bit. Now it's time to add the rice. So in this one, here's our white rice, and now we'll have to really get that going. And we want our 2 cups of stock of that. Over here, we're using our fried organic brown rice. So expect a little crunchier texture over here. And just mix that all in and kind of flatten it. So this is the beginning of building the paella from more or less the ground up, so to speak. Now, you need to add to this 2 cups of our stock. So get that spread around and flatten. As I said before, in classic paella, you add the rice after you have built the rest of it, but I think that's a kind of an unpredictable way to do it. So we'll do it this way. So here's our stock, and we want 2 cups plus all the peas. Get the cognac out of the way there. Should come out just about right. And see, now this is we're gonna simmer that, bring it to a boil and simmer it for 5 minutes. Same thing over here with our wonderful saffron. You saw how that came out to just exactly 2 cups. That's what we want. It's just a little bit shy, and so I'll throw in just a little bit more liquid, and I think I'm going to do it with that clam juice. Themselves, there's a bay leaf, and you know, oh, I just love the flavor of bay leaf, but it can be bitter, and so we've gotten all of our extraction. We can pull it out now. I'll go out to, there we go. But see, this is infused with all the saffron. So, okay, now at this point, this is 5 minutes in, and you can see that it's starting to form a shape. So we're gonna first put the meat in and arrange it. You don't want to stir this thing past this point. That is the whole game. Everybody's got their chicken wing there, and then we'll sprinkle the sausages around so that they're more or less evenly distributed, and everybody gets their 3, and the bacon. And now we're gonna have a little fun. We're gonna put those slices of lemon right in the sort of in the two spots here that we find, and kind of rotating around the center. And this is where we put in the roasted peppers. Now, I got these out of that jar, and they're already roasted, as you can see, and so we just decorate the whole dish with these however we see fit. And now you can see that we're starting to get those colors that are so important to the dish. And I want to make sure we can see those. We don't bury those chicken wings, because that's part of the fun. And whatever. And so we're starting to get that rustic appearance here. And the next thing is we're going to take our our prawns. And make sure everybody gets a prawn. You'll notice we are letting this happen without covering the dish. And then here's our onions. And we're just going to let that continue to cook until the liquid is gone. And then we've got a little trick to make the soca wrap. Going to do the same thing over here. Got all our meat in there, and sort of self-arrange itself nicely in the wok. And our lemon slices. And these are going to cook down. And our red pepper. That's good enough. And then our prawns. Yeah, I think I'm gonna kind of like it better to put the onions in there now, and I'll put the prawns on top of them. So here's the onion. And you see how it's still got some nice color to it and a nice texture. And now we'll take those prawns with the legs on them, because that's kind of rustic. I think I'll just nestle them here and there. They look like they belong to somebody. And there you go. Now we want to. Oh yes, and of course the mussels. Mussels don't take very long to cook. You just steam like this. I'm gonna go ahead and stick a few of them over in the other one because we've got so many left. You may not be able to find fresh mussels. You may not like fresh mussels, but I'm going to go ahead and put some in here and kind of put them in, sticking up so that they make the dish more interesting to look at. There we go. And then finally, I went down and got some crab claws. And I'm going to just put one in this dish just for the heck of it. It's not, everybody doesn't get a crab claw. Maybe in a larger pan I would think about it, but these are just going to kind of be hanging around. And now we let that simmer until all of the liquid is gone. That's critical for what we're about to do, where we're going to try to get that socarat, and the rice needs to be dry on the bottom in order to make that happen. So the final thing I'm going to do here for myself, and a little for the, let's see, how does that work? This is really God's own stuff here. Yeah, you want a sip of that, honey?
Can I do that while I'm
Yeah.
filming?
Yeah, well, it'll be worth it, believe me. and we'll just sprinkle a little around here to give an extra something. And then we'll put it back in the liquor cabinet and lock it back up. So now I am simply waiting for these guys to cook down. I think this one is going to happen first. And then the way we make the socarrat, once it's dry, is we turn the heat as hot as we can get it for exactly 1 minute. Then we take it off and let it sit for 5 to 7 minutes covered. And that is going to give us our crunch on the bottom. Once that's done, we'll be garnishing with cilantro, salt, lemon juice, and then we'll be ready to serve it. Okay, so come in and let's get a close-up of this thing. When you turn the pan, you have no liquid coming out, and that's the condition that you want. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the heat up for exactly 1 minute. So I'm going to get out my timer here, and all right. Yeah, I'm uncovered and I'm trying to burn the dish. Now while we're waiting for that, we're going to take a look at this other one and see if we're in the same spot. I see a little smoke there. There's no liquid coming through here. So that is perfect. And we'll take this and turn it all the way up for exactly 1 minute. Then when I'm done, I'm going to take it off the fire and cover the dish and let it stand for 6 minutes. Okay, so there's our alarm. That's 6 minutes. We can stop now. And here we go. Now this thing is all ready to garnish. That's what we got on the cheap one. And then over here we have the full tilt. I think they both look wonderful. So at least on appearance, it's a close race. Now we're going to garnish with cilantro. We didn't want to heat that cilantro because it harms the flavor, but it, as you see, makes a nice, attractive garnish, and it has some wonderful fragrant qualities to it. So that's the first thing. Then we've got our lemon juice here, and I'm just going to juice the whole thing, but I'm also going to include some lemon wedges for people to use in case they want to juice it up themselves. So over here, show you a little trick on juicing a lemon with your hands. Is you see you have it go through your fingers, and that forms a filter for the seeds. So you don't really need a juicer. And we'll garnish here as well. And then finally, well, actually, I should do this before I want to sprinkle those salt flakes here. And they're just going to sit on top and you can bite right into it. So that's all the salt in the dish, really. So then we'll put our lemons over here and over here. Same deal. Of course, you can just use any kind of salt you want. You can use salt from a grinder, but I just happen to be real fond of this milled stuff. And that is it. That is the dish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour Ruthie a glass of Saint Laurent here, and I'm going to take over the camera and have her come around here and pass judgment on the appearance. I'm particularly interested in the aroma difference that she sees here between the two, and then we'll scoop some out and get her a portion of each. In fact, let me do that now.
So this is sort of a typical meal at our house. Clark cooks something fabulous, and I enjoy it.
Okay, so let's go through this. I got you a glass of Saint Laurent there to play with, but let's start with, well, let's just start with the relative appearance of the two dishes.
Okay. Presentation on both of them is quite beautiful. This one is a little more rustic looking because of the brown rice. This one is a little more vibrant in color because the white rice picks up the turmeric color.
Right.
So it looks a little more lively for that reason, but both beautifully diverse in color and at least visual texture.
Okay, so now give them a sniff. This is, so that's the real Megillah there.
That has a little bit of a smoky, earthy cut. I'm searching for a word here, but sense.
Yeah, I think it's hard to describe saffron.
Yeah. This is fragrant, but this definitely has a little bit smokier quality to it. Not distinctly smoky, but just that gradation between the two of them.
Okay, which do you prefer?
I'm not sure. It would depend on how they taste.
Okay. All right, well, let's get into that then.
Okay.
I see that the pan I used for the white rice, and maybe the rice I used, gave it more of a...
This got nicely crunchy.
It got really crunchy on the
Got that
bottom.
crust on the bottom. So let me just taste that.
Yeah, just taste that.
It is nicely crunchy.
Doesn't taste burnt?
Actually, no. No, not at all.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There's a little sense of caramelization, but not strongly so.
And then, what do you make of the... We didn't get as much of a crunch on the bottom of this one, but I think... How do you like the texture of the rice?
I don't care for the heat of the paprika, but it's certainly...
It's in the saffron.
More flavorful.
Yeah.
The saffron is where the heat comes from?
Yeah, that Georgian saffron. I think they must have put some cayenne in it or something.
Yeah. It's a little more than I enjoy.
Okay, but texture-wise,
the rice is more al dente. So if that's to your preference, that's the way
yeah.
to go with this.
Well, that's what I expected, and I
Yeah.
guess we got the water about right in both cases. 2-to-1.
This probably could use just a little more water. It would still be crunchy.
The brown rice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's dig in.
And
Of course, what I want to see is what you think how this dish goes
red
with
wine with fish.
red wine with fish. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Not to lead the witness.
Mussels are definitely fishy tasting. It's a nice balance of things. You can add a little something out of here,
Yeah.
because there's a chewy bit to that that isn't going to be swallowable for somebody with a band.
Oh.
Okay. Should I also try some of the chicken?
Sure. Boy, you think you can eat chicken with a knife and fork? You must be French. They eat a banana with a knife and fork.
I prefer not to get the food under my fingernails, but
And I'm dying to know how you like that shrimp alone. You want to pull the legs off of the shrimp.
yeah.
And yeah, that's right.
wasn't chugging, I'll do the whole thing.
Okay.
Didn't quite work. Oh well. Well, that's twice as much as I want.
So how do you like that with the wine?
Yeah.
You like that nice acidity there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your testimony, and I think I'll sit down and enjoy some along with you.
Indeed. You've earned it.